Hi everyone, my name is Deryk Daquigan. I work for the City of San Mateo and I'm the Deputy Program Manager for the Clean Water Program. Today I'm going to be giving the same presentation that we gave at the March 28th and 30th community meetings. And the presentation is about the sewer improvements that need to be done, as well as the proposed sewer rate increases that are coming your way. Typically, whenever a service is provided to a user, a fee is charged. And in this case, the City of San Mateo is providing the service of collecting your wastewater, treating it, and discharging it into the San Francisco Bay. Ideally, this service is supposed to be continuous and reliable while keeping the community safe and the environment healthy. But we have an issue with our wastewater infrastructure. And with most wastewater infrastructure problems, it takes money to fix. So let's talk about the issues in the wastewater system, starting with the treatment plant. The treatment plant consists of several different types of facilities that treat your wastewater to try to meet strict environmental regulations. The thing is, many of our facilities are anywhere from 40 to 75 years old. Plus, they're using older technologies, and some of them are even reaching the end of their useful life. Some of the facilities have failed, and some are beginning to fail. Some require significant improvement or need to be completely replaced. And in some peak wet weather conditions, meaning when there are big, out-of-the-ordinary heavy storms, the plant facilities that don't have sufficient capacity to treat the amount of wastewater start to fail. In simple terms, there are leaks and failures, and that is not good. Because of the issues, the city is currently in serious risk of violating these environmental regulations. And that's just the wastewater treatment plant. I haven't even touched upon the other part, which is the collection system. Typically, a sewer lateral connects your property to the city's collection system. And once it's in the collection system, there is a network of pipes, manholes, and pump stations that help to move everyone's wastewater to the treatment plant. Some of these facilities are multiple decades old, while some are newer. But regardless of if they're newer or older, once they are in the ground, they start to age, deteriorate, and even fail, just like some of the images on the screen. It's a cycle that never stops. So every year, the city uses funds collected through your sewer bills to maintain, repair, and replace portions of the system to help keep it operational. And even with all these annual efforts, there are still capacity issues during peak wet weather events. Now, I keep mentioning the words capacity and the term peak wet weather events. So let me dive into this a little bit more. During dry weather or normal conditions, such as a nice summer day where it hasn't rained in weeks, the sewer system runs fine and there is more than enough capacity in the system. But during peak wet weather, the rain infiltrates into the ground and leaks into the sewer pipes through the cracks and failures in the system. The heavy rain mixes with the raw sewage and increases the amount of wastewater in the pipe to the point where there is no more room or capacity in the system, and the only place left for the wastewater to go is up. And typically, the city and the community sees these type of overflows occurring in manholes in the streets. These type of capacity failures are called sanitary sewer overflows. We refer to them in acronyms as SSOs, or simply it's an unintended leak. That is diluted sewage overflowing onto our streets. Imagine you have a glass of sewage and you dump it into a bucket. Then you take 10 glasses of clean rainwater and you also dump that into the same bucket to dilute the sewage. Would you feel safe or healthy touching or being anywhere near that bucket? It is diluted, but it is still disgusting, not safe, and not healthy. These overflows happen in both our collection system and our treatment plant, sometimes for several hours. And once they gush onto the streets, they go into our storm drains. And from the storm drains, they flow into our creeks, then into our lagoon, and eventually into our San Francisco Bay. We've had to put up warning signs at our beaches and close them because of the amount of contamination in the water. This is a significant health risk for both the community and the environment. This has occurred in the past, and it will, without a doubt, continue to occur in the future if we try to maintain the system the way it currently is. So in order to stop it, we need significant improvements because we need to improve. Thing is, the city of San Mateo isn't the only people to have noticed. The California Environmental Protection Agency's Regional Water Quality Control Board also noticed, and their job is to ensure that everyone in California is keeping California waters clean. They have done two things to make sure that the city of San Mateo are trying to meet their regulations, or actually meet their regulations. The first is they've set stricter discharge requirements for our treatment plant, meaning we need to improve our treatment processes at the plant to meet higher levels of discharge quality. The second is they've issued a cease and desist order mandating the elimination of SSOs or overflows, and they're requiring specific corrective actions that we, as a community, have to take. If they say jump, they tell us how high and we must comply. We're not in a good situation, but the city has a plan to address these issues. It has developed the Clean Water Program, and the drivers and goals of the program are simple and straightforward. The first goal is to replace key components of the aging infrastructure in the collection system and the wastewater treatment plant. The second is to comply with current and future regulations by providing higher levels of treatment and capacity assurance. This means we are striving to improve the treatment processes at the plant and to eliminate sanitary sewer overflows throughout the entire system. The third goal is to align with the sustainability goals of the city. We want to make sure that what we are doing is good for the environment and good for the community, both now and in the future. Ultimately, we want to effectively collect the wastewater, treat it to higher levels of quality, and discharge reusable clean water into the bay or to potential partners who may want this clean water as a product to purchase. The city of San Mateo is calling it the Clean Water Program, not only because it aligns with the name of the 1970s Federal Clean Water Act, but also because clean water is the end goal. So instead of replacing the entire system, which would take a lot more money and a lot more time, the city has strategically identified key projects that comprehensively address the issues in both the collection system and the wastewater treatment plant. The city conducted years of master planning efforts and validation studies that looked at the entire system. The city did historical data reviews, hydraulic modeling, engineering studies, business case studies, and a ton of other things that helped to recognize key components of the systems that needed to be improved to adjust both the capacity needs as well as meet the regulatory requirements. The map that is shown on the slide is a bit difficult to see, but this shows the significant number of projects in these key locations that provide a comprehensive approach to the issues. The different colored blobs of yellow, green, and purple are different ways that the city has packaged the sewer system improvements. And within these blob packages are a lot of smaller projects. The red lines indicate pipeline projects, the green dots are pump station projects, and the pink rectangle in the northwest, or northeast actually, is the wastewater treatment plant. The only thing not shown in this comprehensive map is the location of the underground in-system storage location, which will be determined later this year. So let's go into the details of the improvements a little bit more, starting with the wastewater treatment plant. The wastewater treatment plant is located towards the northeast portion of San Mateo, just off Highway 101's 3rd Avenue exit towards the east. The wastewater treatment plant is tucked away on Detroit Drive, and this image shows both the existing wastewater treatment plant outlined in green at the bottom, as well as the conceptual layout of future facilities outlined in orange up top. Let's focus on the bottom half of the existing facilities. The different buildings are facilities that each play a key role in the treatment process. These were first constructed in the 30s and 40s, and since then it has grown and expanded with new facilities. Lots of maintenance and rehabilitations have occurred since then, but there has not been any significant expansion projects for decades. The upper half, which is outlined in orange, is the conceptual future facilities that will replace some of the older facilities. And these are newer technologies that will help to provide manageability as well as operational efficiencies that will meet environmental regulations and overall improve system capacities. Moving on to the collection system, if you remember the comprehensive map, there were a lot of red lines and green dots. And there are significant improvements planned for the collection system. There will be a new underground in-system storage tank. There will also be several pump station upgrade and rehabilitation projects, and there will be a significant number of pipeline projects. The city is also conducting infiltration and inflow studies, along with doing its continuous annual collection system investigations and rehabilitation projects. All of these improvements build capacity and enhance operations and manageability of the system. These are improvements that are funded by the sewer charges that you provide to the city and allow us to do these improvements. What will happen if we don't do these improvements? First, more aging, deterioration, and failures will occur in our system. If we wait longer, it won't be as reliable. Sewer service is supposed to be continuous and reliable. In the system's current state, overflows will continue to occur, and this is a big health risk. The Environmental Protection Agency will not like that we are violating the regulations, and this could result in fines to the city that will get passed on to you, the ratepayers. The longer we wait, the more expensive it will cost. It's kind of like my first car, which was the 1982 280ZX. I drove that thing everywhere, all over the Bay Area, and it got me where I needed to go, most of the time, but not all the time. It also leaked oil on my driveway, and it stopped passing smog tests and wasn't meeting regulations. Just like that, I needed a more reliable car, just as we need a more reliable system that will help improve capacity and meet regulations. As I said before, infrastructure problems need money to fix. Now, the Clean Water Program and all of its projects is estimated to cost $900 million. This is the cost for the improvements at the plant, the collection system, and ongoing operations and maintenance needs. The initial program was 20 years, and it has been condensed to be implemented over 10 years. This reduction in duration not only saves costs on interest and escalation, it also meets the goals of the program and will provide benefits sooner than later. Now let me explain this graph. The timeline is the horizontal axis at the bottom. The vertical bars show the planned costs for each fiscal year. If you end up adding all the costs for each fiscal year, it should equate to the total $900 million. Now, the costs ramp up and peak at approximately $230 million in fiscal year 2021, then ramp back down in years after that. There's also that green line that indicates the revenue requirements for each fiscal year. Between now and the end of the timeline, revenue needs to double. Rates will also increase as a result. Now, you're probably asking, why are the vertical bars showing the cost so high in comparison to the green revenue line? Shouldn't the revenues match the costs? Actually, no. The city does not have cash on hand to pay for everything up front, so financing will be utilized to spread the costs. The revenue requirements show the green line is the amount needed to pay off the financing, and it's kind of like a car I ended up buying to replace my old one. I ended up financing it because I ended up taking out a car loan. Instead of paying for the full value of the car up front, I pay a small portion each month. The revenue requirements for the Clean Water Program shown on the graph are kind of like the income that I needed to make in order to pay off my monthly car payments. So sewer use fees are paid by all properties or entities that connect into the sewer collection system and/or contribute to the flows of the treatment plant. This map shows the outer service boundaries. It's not just San Mateo properties that pay for the service. Foster City, Hillsborough, Crystal Springs Sanitation District, and several agencies pay for the service and contribute to the revenue needed to fund the program. Essentially, all connected and serviced users pay their fair share. The current sewer fee structure is 100% volumetric, meaning the more you use, the more you pay, or the less you use, the less you pay. There are two components needed to calculate a sewer fee. The first is the rate. The charge rate is determined based on revenue needs, and as you saw in previous slides, the revenue needs are growing. The second component is the usage. This is based on average winter water usage, which excludes outdoor irrigation. This means the city looks at your monthly water meter readings from the prior November through March, then averages it. This average is then multiplied by 12 months to calculate your yearly usage, and the calculated yearly usage is what is used in calculating your fee in the equation shown on the slide. When you multiply the rate and your usage, you determine your sewer bill. Now let's talk about historical rates. The city has increased rates over the past 20 years. The blue lines indicate the actual rates increasing over time, and they've ranged from 2% to 12% increases per year. The green line shows the average increases, and the city is just under 6% rate increase per year. These are fiscally responsible rate increases that provided the revenue needed to fund the operational and maintenance costs over the past few years. And due to Proposition 218, the city is not allowed to overcollect, nor are we allowed to set rates that above what is required for the estimated revenue needs. The revenue needs have increased due to the improvements needed to meet the regulations, and so the rates have to increase as well. So, as you know, California has been in a drought the past couple of years, and we've been really good at doing a good job at conserving water. However, since sewer fees are based on winter water usage, the water conservation efforts have resulted in unanticipated shortfalls in sewer fees collected over the past few years. This slide helps to illustrate an example of these impacts. Between fiscal year 14-15 and 15-16, the city raised rates by 10%. The following year, it raised rates by 12%. Ideally, the goal of this was to increase the revenues that were brought in through sewer bills. The sewer rate increases bumped up the rates from $7.35 to $8.08 to $9.05. And even though the rates were being increased, there was an unanticipated decrease in the usage, which negatively impacted the fees collected. Even though the city raised rates, lots of properties still did not even pay even more. It basically paid the same. In other words, the actual revenue received through sewer fees has been lower than the anticipated target revenues. This graph shows the impacts another way. The upward sloping green line shows where the revenue needs are supposed to be each year. However, the flat blue line shows where the revenues actually ended up over the past couple of years. Basically, they're flat and they're below the green line based on due to decreased usage. Now, the steeper red line is the revenue gap that we need to make up this year, and this shortfall is a reason for a substantial rate increase. So let's compare San Mateo to some of the 22 neighboring jurisdictions around us. There are only 6 agencies that have lower fees than San Mateo's, and everyone else is higher. San Carlos is 1.7 times higher than San Mateo's. Crystal Springs County Sanitation District is just over 2 times more than San Mateo's, and Hillsboro's average monthly fee is over 3.5 times more than San Mateo's. Currently, San Mateo's charges are significantly lower than any of the higher agencies on this chart. Now, you're probably asking, what is our current rate and what will it be increased to? The proposed maximum rate increase is 36%. This is proposed to be an across-the-board increase, so the residential rate, the commercial rate, and the minimum charges are all going to be increasing by a maximum of 36% as well. Now remember the equation that I shared with you earlier. Remember to calculate your sewer fee, you need the rate and the usage. This slide only indicates the proposed rate. I also wanted to talk about the usage part of the equation. Over the years, the average usage has decreased, and it is currently around 500 cubic feet of usage per month. To give you a sense of perspective, 500 cubic feet is approximately 125 loads of laundry or 150 showers that each last 10 minutes. That's the average usage per month. There are also properties that are low users, and there are properties that are high users. Now remember, because of the 100% volumetric structure, the more you use, the more you pay. So let's focus in on the average user indicated with orange arrows on the slide. Currently on the left side, the monthly sewer charge is $45.25 for the average residential dwelling unit with 500 cubic feet of monthly winter water use. The proposed 36% rate increase would increase the average charge amount to $61.55 per month. Remember, if you use more, you'll pay more. If you use less, you'll pay less. The minimum monthly charge also would increase from $22.63 to $30.78. Now let's bring it back to this chart. There have been some changes. First, I wanted to point out that the previous version was based off a 600 cubic feet typical monthly usage. The decreased usage has changed since then, and the average is now 500 cubic feet. So the average rates displayed here are effective respectively. As you could see towards the left side, San Mateo's current average monthly charge is in the bottom third out of 22 agencies. With a 36% rate increase, it places us in the middle of the spectrum. In comparison to our neighbors, we are not too high and we are not too low. I also wanted to point out that this only shows the updated numbers for City of San Mateo's increases. Currently, many of our neighboring agencies are also undergoing the Proposition 218 sewer rate increase as well. And so once they are done with their increases, the overall landscape of this chart will change. Now that you know the proposed sewer rate increase for fiscal year 17-18 and how it compares to our neighbors, I wanted to conclude with saying that we aren't just raising rates just to do it. The increase is supposed to align our actual revenue needs with our target revenue needs. It will help to fund the city's continuous operations and maintenance activities, as well as help to fund the projects and improvements of the clean water program needed to replace our aging infrastructure, meet current and future regulations, as well as align with the city's sustainability goals. Now, I wanted to transition to talk about planning for the future. To plan for the future, the city wants to establish revenue stability and predictability. Planning efforts and studies continue to be conducted on how the city should establish this stability and predictability. And there are two key ideas that I want to preview with the community through this presentation. This year, the city is proposing a single-year 36% rate increase. The two key rate considerations that I want to preview with you today are, the first is rate restructuring, and the second is multi-year rate increases. Remember this slide? I want to share this with you again to remind you that the current rate structure is 100% volumetric, meaning the more you use, the more you pay. And remember this graph also? One thing that I didn't talk about on this slide the last time was the different colors for the bars. We added a larger legend indicating the green bars are for volumetric charges, while the blue bars are for fixed rate charges. You know that for 100% volumetric structures, the more you use, the more you pay. For fixed charges, it doesn't matter how little or how much you pay or how much you use. Residential properties typically pay the same fixed amount regardless of usage. If you look across the chart, there are 12 agencies that are all blue and have 100% fixed structures. 4 agencies have 100% volumetric structures, one of which is the City of San Mateo. And lastly, there are 6 agencies that have hybrid structures. Please notice that not all the hybrid structures are the same. For example, Belmont in the middle looks to be 50% volumetric and 50% fixed. Bayshore Sanitation District to the left looks to have a higher percentage of volumetric charges, while Millbrae on the right looks to have more fixed charges than volumetric charges. Each agency's revenue needs are different, and so their structures and average charges are set up accordingly. There are pros and cons and social aspects associated with the two rate structures. The green and blue boxes have points about each structure that I want to highlight with you today. Let's look at the top lines in each box first. For volumetric structures, the more you use, the more you pay. The users that are most impacted by this structure are high users because they get higher charges. For a fixed rate structure, you pay the same regardless of use. In this scenario, the users that are most impacted are low users because they end up paying the same as high users. There are social aspects that need to be communicated and considered when looking at these two structures. Now let's take a look at the second line in each box. Volumetric rates are unpredictable for both the users and the city. Overall, the past few years, usage has decreased below what was anticipated, and as a result, there is a revenue shortfall and a need for the proposed 36% rate increases. On the complete other end of the spectrum, the fixed structure provides greater revenue stability. This is because it's not linked to the unpredictability of usage. Both the user and the city can predict how much they will respectively pay and charge. Now, on the last line in each box, it says volumetric aligns with distribution by usage, while fixed aligns with equal distribution. The existing wastewater system is currently being operated and maintained by the city and is used by more high users and less by low users. If no significant improvements are made, then it makes sense to continue distributing charges by usage, which aligns with the current volumetric structure. However, the Clean Water Program projects are specifically to improve wet weather capacity and provide higher levels of treatment to meet regulations. These improvements are needed by everyone that is obtaining city's services. Therefore, it makes sense that these charges be shared equally by all users, which aligns more with the fixed rate model. Now, if I could point your focus to the middle orange arrow, the city is considering a future hybrid structure that is part volumetric and part fixed. Now, further studies need to be completed before the city knows where along this hybrid spectrum it should be. This hybrid sewer rate structure aligns with that car analogy that I had earlier about my more reliable car. The fixed fee is kind of like my monthly car payment, or your monthly car payment. You will know how much it costs each month. The volumetric component, however, is like the amount of gas you pay each month. The more you drive, the more you pay. But in order to get the whole experience, you need to pay the monthly fixed fee as well as all the gas. Thing is, if I wanted to drive off the car lot with a low interest car loan, I needed to prove that I had stable income to pay the monthly car payments. A transition towards including a fixed fee into the structure will improve revenue stability. The city will need to analyze the different structures before presenting anything further. Now onto the second consideration. You've seen this graph before. The sloped green line shows the target revenue needed for each year. The flat blue line was the actual revenue recovered, and the steep red line is the revenue gap that we plan to make up with a 36% increase. Between now, which is fiscal year 16-17, until the end of the graph and the clean water program, the city has to double its revenues, and as a result, increase rates. Over the past few years, the city has proposed single-year increases each year. Last year, the Proposition 218 process indicated a single-year 12% increase. This year's Prop 218 process indicates a 36% increase. Some of our neighboring jurisdictions have established multi-year rate increases. What this means is that for their Prop 218 process, they didn't just request a one-time increase. Instead, they indicated each percentage increase for a series of multiple upcoming years. Some agencies utilize 3 years to 5 years for their multi-year increases. Let's use a 3-year multi-year increase as an example. So when you receive a Prop 218 notice in the mail, it may indicate year 1 would have a 10% increase, year 2 would have an 8% increase, and year 3 would have a 6% increase. Now, as a reminder, this is just an example. By establishing a multi-year rate increase, it also establishes revenue stability and predictability. In the future, the city is considering proposing a multi-year rate increase. The increases for each year will be based on revenue needs and would still need to be heavily analyzed and determined before we send out a notice. The city is also pursuing low interest rate financing mechanisms to reduce the costs and interest and the overall cost of improvements. These finance mechanisms require this level of revenue stability and predictability. The idea of rate restructuring to include fixed fee components along with the multi-year rate increases will set up the city to qualify and utilize these finance mechanisms. Now, I understand as ratepayers you are directly impacted, but please remember to keep in mind that your rates will fund the improvements needed to provide the ongoing service and the regulatory compliant improvements that benefit both the environment and the community of San Mateo. This concludes my presentation. Thank you.